Oh, hello. Morning. I was told that there were a number of hungover faces out there. So have you all had your coffee? You all good? Can I get, how many of you guys were at Sebastian's session yesterday? Oh, they love you.
Hey.
Okay, that's great. So we're going to try and cover some stuff that we didn't cover yesterday, and obviously there's a lot to talk about. I thought I would call this session Everything That Robyn Wants to Know About Sebastian, since having watched all his movies last week.
She kidnapped me to a volcano yesterday and asked me all the most intimate questions.
Yeah. I've worked out, it's a great way to do it. You just perch someone on the edge of a volcano and then
You have him like that?
So, so Sebastian, obviously everyone knows then who Sebastian Silva is, filmmaker from Chile, now lives in New York. And I want to ask you to begin with, your first kind of foray into a creative life was what?
It was drawing.
Drawing?
Yeah. But that was we're 7 siblings, 5 brothers and 2 sisters, and then my dad would encourage us, he would just buy notebooks and pencils and would encourage us to draw from a very early age. And some of us kept on doing it forever. And I still do it. Now I'm doing more painting than drawing, but I started very early drawing. I never did so much sequential drawing, like comic strips or anything. It was always more character design and
Character design?
Yeah, just drawing cartoons, basically.
Right,
cartoons,
right. So you were, I guess with the drawing, became interested in faces, yeah?
Right.
People?
Yeah, you could say that, yeah. Yeah.
I suppose there's nothing else to...
Has nothing to do with... No, yeah, I mean, there was not really a transition from drawing to filmmaking. To be completely honest, I never wanted to make movies.
Why not?
Yeah.
You're just not interested?
I was I watch a lot of movies when I was from 15 to 17. I think I went to the theater a lot, but I was not picky at all. I would just go watch anything. And then I didn't want to study because I just hated school. I was the worst student ever, and I hate the education system everywhere. I just think kids should not go to school. Seriously, yeah, I mean, you don't want to keep them at home because that's what I would send them to school, not to have them myself, but I don't believe in the education.
It's funny, isn't it? Another filmmaker said to me the other day, never let school get in the way of a good education. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't have kids, but if my kid doesn't want to go to school, I'd be like, yeah, who wants to go to school? Stay home. Of course, stay home. Makes total sense.
So, despite the fact that you didn't want to be a filmmaker, you watched quite a lot of movies in your teenage years. Do you remember, were there standout films for you? Were you watching local Chilean films, or were you... No,
we didn't. No, but because when I was growing up, most of Chilean films were political movies, which I don't like so much. So yeah, it was more I was obsessed with Disney movies. I was obsessed with Garfield. So I was really into cartoons. And then I do remember a movie that I shouldn't have watched at that age. My dad fucked up and took me to watch Lords of the Flies, the one from the 80s. And I was completely traumatized. But it's still one of my favorite films. And that movie and also Stand By Me was a movie that resonated a lot until today. It's a movie that I love. And there's a movie that I wrote that I want to shoot in France in 2 more years that is kind of a take on those movies, just kids being cruel to each other and yeah.
Was there any, I'm just jumping forward here, Magic has got an element of that in it.
Yeah, it does. Magic was really a homage to Polanski, in my mind. Specifically to Rosemary's Baby and The Tenant, and that sort of gruesome mix of tragedy and comedy. Because it's Rosemary's Baby is the craziest tragedy. A woman is being chased, they wanted, these satanic people want to steal her baby, but yet Ruth Gordon makes it funny. And then you're laughing while this woman is going through the worst tragedy. So I find that very horrifying. With Magic, I wanted to explore the horror genre and there's one movie that scares me truly. It's The Exorcist, and there's nothing else that I'm scared of. Like everything seems silly to me in horror. There's even The Shining. I'm like, bleeding walls. Like, I don't.
It's a, so yeah, because The Exorcist is so, by comparison to modern films, it's so
just
slow,
scary. When the movie ends, I don't want to be alone. And then I felt that Polanski made me feverish in a different way. I was not scared necessarily about Rosemary's Baby or The Tenant, but I felt dirty or something. I felt disgusted and like just sick, and I wanted to make people sick. No, I wanted to. I found that mix so interesting, and Magic is that. It's really about a girl triggering an episode of paranoid schizophrenia in the wrong place with the wrong people, and it's called Magic because there's really actually nothing magical about it, but we make believe that there's something paranormal happening, but it's just her and her mind sort of unwinding.
Can we go back a little bit? So. There were those early films. So you never wanted to make movies. What was the thing that flipped you into becoming a filmmaker?
Right, I didn't want to study after high school. I just wanted to be free. And then my parents were like, no. And then I met with this guy that had an advertising agency, and he was a good friend of my parents, an older wise man, kind of more of a liberal. He was kind of a hippie. He did Reiki. And so that's how our meeting started, with a Reiki session. And then he's like, why didn't you just study film? And I'm like, what? He's like, well, yeah, it's like so much fun. It's like you'll be writing, you'll be like, it has music, it has like images, it's like it has it all. Who cares? You don't need to be too smart to go to film school. Just like, I'm like, wow, yeah, I could do that. But my plan was to study really film animation. I wanted to study animation. As I said, I was like huge on Disney and like later on The Simpsons and Ren and Stimpy, and I really just wanted to make cartoons, right? So I was like, yeah, sure. So I went to a film school for like half a year. It was a film school run by two alcoholic men. And it was like a Bauhaus house in like downtown. It was falling apart. There were like stray dogs in the garden. It was a total mess. So we were just smoking weed and like recording everything with a little video camera. Like I bought a video camera and I just started recording things. So that's when I started. But I remember they were like, okay, like the first classes, the first like weeks, you had to bring your favorite films. And I'm like, what? It's my favorite. I don't have a favorite movie. And I brought just a VHS that I found at my parents' house, and it was A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. So I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'll bring this. I was a really bad student, right? And everybody bought like Truffaut and Bergman, and then I'm like, it's my turn. I'm like, I brought Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and they're like, oh my god. And they're like, why do you like this so much? And I had no answer, right? And I'm like, oh, let's watch some. And then whatever was being screened, I'm like, wow, look at that sofa. It's so ominous, right? It's just like, look how those people are sitting there. Like, isn't it telling you something? Can you see? So I just had to make up reasons why I liked the movie as we were watching it with the class. Yeah, that's my beginning in filmmaking. I quit. Like I didn't do a year of it. Like I started taking animation classes from the second year, and I just didn't care for grades or being graded. It just felt, and I really don't. I mean, this is gonna sound really weird because if there's film students here, but I don't highly recommend studying film, to be honest, unless you want to study film theory, but like the practical aspects of filmmaking, I feel that you really learn so much more by making. And now you can make movies with an iPhone, you know? So it's like making movies is it's really the way to learn how to make them, I think.
I'm jumping way ahead. I was reading some stuff yesterday, and I'll quote you around your film Nasty Baby, which was polarizing at Sundance.
Right.
And this is about the whole film school idea, and there's this big tonal shift at the end that seemed to upset people. I don't know, how many of you have seen Nasty Baby?
Nobody. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
It's not out yet.
Yeah. it's sort of, we're going to show a clip from it in a minute, and the clip we're going to show, I guess, is part of what's a deeply compassionate and beautiful story. And the story itself tonally shifts into something much more brutal and awful in the last moments of the film. And you were criticised for that by some, but you said, and there is no tragedy until there is tragedy, in the sense that, you know, stuff in life doesn't happen necessarily in a perfectly structured way, or this was what I was taking
I mean,
from.
like,
so film school teaches you about the structure of, you know, I hear a lot about structure.
Yeah, I believe that structure is good to know structure. It really helps to deconstruct it, like, because
Right.
when you master structure, not master it, but when you understand it and then you decide not to do it, then that's a conscious decision, you know. Whether like you're trying to tell a story in a ordinary way or like in a more Aristotelic way, and then you fail, that's a whole different thing, you know. But when you want to break narrative structure purposely, you are in control, you know. You are doing something on purpose. And in Nasty Baby, what I did basically, it's very simple. Like instead of having the third and most important, the last plot on the beginning of the third act or at the end of the second act, it happens in the middle of the third act, which is completely unorthodox because you feel that you've already gone through the story.
Yeah.
Like you're like, okay, now the ending is coming, but then something happens that shifts the whole story in a complete different direction, and people really were not expecting that because of a timing thing. Because if that happened like 15 minutes before, yeah, people would be upset, but they wouldn't feel betrayed like some people did, you know? They were like, wait a minute. Some people stood up and left because they felt so horrified. And the reason I did it is because I needed as much time as possible for my audience to identify with these characters that do something really, truly awful at the very end, right? So I wanted the audience to have a real difficult time judging them, because the more you know somebody, the more difficult it is to judge them, because you can understand them better. So I make them get inside my characters as much as I could, and then make the characters do this thing that conflicted the audience because they forgive them immediately, but that forgiveness comes across as like a very politically incorrect thing to do. Yeah.
And
to
what you
forgive
do,
them.
of course, which is the scene we're going to, which you can introduce, give people the context to, but this scene here, which I will just preface by saying I think it's probably one of the most beautiful sex scenes I think I've ever seen in cinema. And it makes us feel incredibly warm and compassionate to these characters. And then later you pull the rug out from underneath them, don't you? Do you want to?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, Nasty Baby, it's about a gay couple with a straight friend, a female friend, that are trying to have a baby together. And my character, Freddie, who's the leading character, is obsessed with the idea of becoming a biological father, but very soon in the movie, very early in the movie, he finds out that his sperm count sucks, basically, and he cannot have babies, right? So he's really frustrated, and then his boyfriend is going to be the donor, but his family is kind of conservative, so he's having second guessing it. And Polly, the character that Kristen Wiig plays, is like pushing 40, so she's like, I want a fucking baby right now. So this is when they make the baby, which is like, it is a sex scene, but then I would call it a baby making scene.
Baby making scene.
Yeah.
It's a real baby making scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that scene because I feel like I'm intruding on something incredibly intimate and private.
Everybody's welcome. Come watch.
Tell me how did you make that scene? How much of that was because this was this film wasn't scripted, was it?
No.
Yeah. So how much of the kind of the choreography of that?
We knew how, like, this scene is super key in the movie, right? It's like the one time that, because they tried to supposedly Polly and Freddie have tried to do this a couple of times and it hasn't worked, and then they meet at Freddie's apartment at some point because she's ovulating, so Mo's gonna do it, and then he gets cold feet, and then she's really upset and she leaves, and then they go visit Mo's family, and then after a weird sort of discussion about gay parenting or parenthood, they've been drinking wine, and then they end up in this room upstairs in Mo's parents' house and decide to do it. Like, she's ovulating again, and she's brought her kid. So all of that was scripted, you know? But like, for instance, I never knew that she was gonna wrap that baby picture of Mo's on her pussy. Like, that was something that she had been looking at the picture, we loved the picture, and then that was improv, you know? Or like, when she's like, it's warm, and then I'm like, ugh. Like, all of that, none of that it's scripted, of course, you know? But we're just going through the motions of like, imagine if you and your friends were doing an artificial insemination. That's how we would do it. Probably other people would do it differently and more serious or whatever. It's like, it's those characters or us as people, me, Kristen, and Tunde, that's the way we rolled. We were actually a little drunk when we did it, which helped.
Because I would imagine, for the three of you, oddly enough, as opposed to a kind of a classic Hollywood sex scene, you know, where everyone takes their clothes off and it's all a bit of a weird technical dance, that would have been quite a confronting, intimate scene to work on.
Oh, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Oh my God, no. Actually, I'm not a big fan of sex scenes. Like, I love porn, but I don't like sex scenes, if that makes any sense. I feel that sex scenes, unless there's some information within the scene, or like you finally, like you see a tattoo in her ass, you're like, oh my God, she's the killer. Like, something that gives you like story information, you know what I'm saying? But like, just like to have your characters like do those like soft core scenes where they're like, man, and then you see a hand going in a pan and then cut like half the boob, like, what's the point? Like, I don't there's several directors that actually, I think Woody Allen's never made a sex scene ever. And like, there's something about sex scenes in movies that I find them truly unnecessary.
So, can I ask you why you like porn, just as a random...
Oh, I don't like porn. I hate porn, but I just do it. It's not... Yeah, it's not... What do you mean? Let's not talk about porn.
I didn't warn you about this bit
yeah,
of the interview
right?
today.
Oh my God.
Okay, well, let's talk about embarrassment then.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
So you mentioned it yesterday. You talked about embarrassment and vulnerability being really key to the work that you do. And in particular, I'm getting a sense from the films of yours that I've watched that one of the things that seems to drive you is, and drive the stories, is kind of honing in to the vulnerabilities of human beings.
Right.
And their kind of sense of embarrassment in the world. And
right. There's something about being embarrassed that like, because why are you embarrassed in the first place? It only has to do with insecurity, right? So I feel that the more embarrassed you are, the more tough your skin becomes and in the creative process, I feel that embarrassment is huge because you just lose fear of failure, because you're embarrassed, like if you're invited to a dinner and then you think that maybe you are underdressed, you know? So you're embarrassed because the way you look, you know, or the way you eat. And these people are so fancy, they really know how to like roll their spaghetti, and you're like, and then you're like embarrassed about it, but like, it's only about your own insecurities. And I feel that forcing embarrassment in yourself would just make you like strong. And also like, there's something really fun about watching people be embarrassed. Like, I feel that it's a really good place to start for storytelling. Just like think of a little scene that somebody is embarrassed, like it's hiding something, you know?
There's a scene in Crystal Fairy and the Magic Cactus that, I mean, I've never seen this on film before, where Michael Cera is at a party and he he goes into the bathroom at the party and takes a dump in the loo, and then that terrible thing that happens where there are people outside waiting to use the loo, there's no toilet paper and the poo won't flush away. And I do, apart from anything else, and this is childish, but was that real poo?
That is real poo, and there is like a really embarrassing story behind that one turd. So I was
It
staying,
looked like real poo.
Yeah,
That's why I asked.
I was staying at that house. That's my best friend's house. I was staying there while we were gonna shoot Magic in Crystal Fairy, and that toilet did that. Like, you take a shit and then you flush, and it's like, we'll come back to humiliate you. You're like, oh my God. So you had to like, the relationship with your feces just became a thing. Like, you were like, why are you coming back? What do you want to, what are you trying to tell me? And then, so we knew that about that toilet, right? So we were shooting this crazy party scene because it was a movie with no money, right? So I just got my friend's house, and we're gonna throw a party there. We needed so many extras, so we just offered like booze and whatever, like a fun party, and we invited like 100 people to the party, just kids that wanted to hang out. So the party was a crazy mess, and then my boyfriend took a dump in that bathroom, right? And I'm like, keep that shit there, like nobody, like that's gonna be Michael Cera's turd, right? And Michael was happy, it was like a good turd, you know? And then,
It was
like a healthy looking.
It was a film-friendly turd.
Yeah, exactly. So we're happy with it, and then I'm like, lock the bathroom, like nobody enters that bathroom. There's like, you know. So then by the end of that was the third scene was the last scene we were gonna shoot because we only needed Michael, right? And then we go into the bathroom, and there's somebody had flushed the toilet. And I'm like, where's the shit? Where's the shit? And I'm walking around the house. I'm like, who needs to take a shit? We need shit. And nobody wanted, and they're like, I don't want my shit to be in a movie, I'm sorry. And it became a true struggle, and I'm like, okay guys, I'll be right back. So I went into the bathroom myself, and I had no desire to go to the bathroom at all. And magically, I just pushed this really mediocre looking turd, and then that's the turd in the movie.
I've never heard of
But
it.
I've never heard of anything like that before, and it's the only time I've done. Like, you don't do that. People don't do that.
Or of a director giving so much for their film.
I mean, we really needed it. Like,
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of harks back really to Rachel Griffiths' talk yesterday about, you know, just how you've got to, you know, work with what you've got on the day and give what you can give, and you.
That's all I had.
Yeah. And you didn't know that you had that shit in you, and you.
I didn't. That's the weird
Oh my God,
thing.
I could riff on this for the half an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, what's beautiful about that, as you said, is that embarrassment. I mean, that's a beautifully embarrassing.
I mean, the good thing about embarrassing, there's nothing to lose. There's nothing to lose after you've been embarrassed. It's like, who cares about flashing a little? You flash, you feel flustered, but then it's over, you know?
Yeah.
And then you only became stronger. Yes, we were talking with my friend. It's just a stupid thing, but like, you know when you're in a theater and your phone rings and everybody's like, what the fuck? And you're like, I'm sorry. And then you try to turn it off and you're freaking out. Like, yeah, like with my friend, I told her like I felt like being embarrassed, so I would leave my phone with the not on silence mode. So I would like, if it rang, I would feel embarrassed because people would hate me in the theater. So that's pushing embarrassment. But I didn't do it. It was like just an idea of how you could like make yourself embarrassed on purpose.
Yeah. So it is Magic. It strikes me that Juno's character in Magic, it begins as social embarrassment and ends as a paranoid, psychotic episode. Would that be fair to say? Like at the beginning, when she's, I don't know how many of you have seen film Magic. my feeling about it at the beginning was that there was this vulnerable girl
Right.
who was actually, the embarrassment was crippling for her.
Right, I mean, it's when you're like insecure. I don't know if ever anyone here, because like what I like about that movie is that I feel that everybody has been at a party, like a friend invited you to a party where you don't know anyone, and they're a cool crowd, and they all know each other, and you're like the weird bird, right, the new bird, and like you don't want to interrupt. They have a dynamic, you know, and like whenever you interrupt, they're like, "What did you say?" Or like, and then they ask you, "What do you do?" Just like you feel that you're. So that feeling of insecurity, where you would rather hide in a bathroom until the party's over, you know, and then leave and be like, "Yeah, I was just somewhere." That feeling, if that feeling can escalate to like a sort of like a schizophrenic paranoid episode, I feel like that's how it could start. So I wanted the character to start in a place where everybody could identify themselves with. Like, okay, I've been in a car where I don't dare to participate. Like I don't dare to, even though if I know, if I could chip in with a joke, I'm too terrified that nobody's gonna find it funny or that I don't find the right timing to say my joke, so I'll just stay quiet. And maybe you're not a quiet person, you're just being quiet there because you don't know anyone. So that feeling of insecurity, it's how Juno is feeling, or her character in the beginning. And then she slowly develops this, she triggers this.
It's excruciating for us as an audience because I think we all identify with her up to a point, and then there's this kind of awful moment where you can see where that stuff could take any of us at any given point.
I feel like when as I told you, I wanted to make a horror film, and I was not gonna try to scare people like these new horror films that there's like flies in people's mouth or like child with black eyes, you know. I wanted to scare them in a way that like they could feel that they could happen to them, and I feel that for me the scariest thing ever is to lose my the capacity of like my mind capacities, and like from being utterly depressed and finding like, or having suicidal thoughts, or like that for me is it's truly scary, you know. And I feel that everybody can identify with depression or insecurities, you know, or paranoia. So that's what we did in the film. And Juno did a great job, but as we were talking yesterday, like young actresses sometimes don't have the tools just to act, you know, because they're actresses. So you're like, just act like you're upset. You don't need to be truly upset. But she couldn't, and then she kept on bringing herself to these like really dark places. And I was a little concerned because she was actually making herself cry every day. And like, when I'm like, no, just act more upset, more. And she was really, truly going to a place of darkness that it was eating her up. Like she was having the worst time shooting the movie because she had to play a paranoid, schizophrenic girl, but she had to act it up. Like I didn't expect.
So did she stay in that? She stayed in that place for the whole film.
Yeah, I mean, like she would, like while we were shooting, she would bring herself to such a dark places that after we were done, it was hard for her to like come back to normal.
And that's so. If we could talk for a minute about how you work with actors in terms of, you know, what your dialogue with actors. Obviously, working with somebody like Juno would be very different to working with. Who's the wonderful actress in the MAID?
Oh, Catalina, yeah.
Catalina, two quite different performers.
Yeah.
So is your dialogue very different with?
It is different. There's some actors that you need to be more on top of, you know, and like.
How do you mean?
Like just are the ones that every time you say cut, there's one actor that you go to, and some others that you feel that they're just doing they know what they're doing. Some actors seem to be a little lost, and I feel that it's always the director's responsibility. I don't believe in saying no, like you know, if an actor is not good in a film, it's not his fault or her fault. It's really the director's fault. I feel that on a play maybe it's the actor's fault, but on a movie, the director picked the actor, and he had the actor to direct at every take. So he made the decision to be like, to move to the next scene, you know, and be like, okay, yeah, we're good here. So if he accepted that scene as it was, then it's his fault. Like, it's not the actor's fault ever. So, I mean, being that said, like, with Juno, I had to be more on top of her just because she was like hurting herself and playing a paranoid schizophrenic. It was something that it's kind of out of the norm too. Like I don't know how they truly behave. Like I don't hang out with paranoid schizophrenic people that often, you know. But I don't know. Like I personally, it's not that I don't believe in method acting. I believe in everything. I don't know. It's whatever works for anybody. But for me, in film, you have such a little time that I feel that sometimes I'm like, oh, I need you to cry here. And sometimes like I have an actor who's like, but why am I crying for? Like, where are these tears coming? And I'm like, just give me tears, please. Like, just like, pretend you're crying. Like, pretend you're crying. Yeah. Like, you don't need to know why you're crying. Just like, give me a cry. Just give me a crying face, you know?
Decrying acting.
Yeah, like this.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because I heard it said once, and I'm sure it's true, that in film, you know, in terms of performance, and direction, it's 95% of it's casting, and that if you cast well, then you don't need to direct an awful lot because the right actor is in the right role. And with Juno, perhaps you needed someone in a weird way for the film to torture herself that much because it's excruciating watching her.
I mean, I love what she did. I was like just worried about her, you know.
Yeah.
But if that was the way that she could give me what I wanted, then I was like extremely grateful. But I was like, let's take care of it. I'm like, can you just act like you're crying instead of like actually make yourself cry?
Yeah.
And she's like, no.
Let's talk about story for a minute, and we might have a look at those clips from the MAID shortly. Yesterday, I got the sense listening to you that you are so fascinated with behaviour and people that you could pretty much build a story around anything. And I got this wonderful sense from you. I mean, at the end of the session, I thought, well, fuck, I could write. You make it sound so easy, you know? It's like you just need to look at people and work out what's driving them and make yourself vulnerable and just get... And then I thought, no, I actually think he might be really quite fucking genius, you know? But what
it's just
where do the stories
everywhere.
come from
it's
for
truly
you?
everywhere.
Right,
like,
right.
That's what's so fascinating about filmmaking. And as I said before, I never knew that I wanted to make movies. But then I made my first film, I was like, this is the most similar sort of art expression to life itself. Just because everywhere you are, it could be a movie of a scene, and not everywhere you are could be a painting or a song, you know? But this could be the scene of a movie easily, you know? Maybe somebody in the crowd's been staring at me like a creep. I'm not gonna say who, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there could be somebody here that's been like, since we entered, you know? Yeah. But yeah, that's the beginning of a story already. Like that I've been here with you talking, and then I'm like sweating because there's somebody somewhere here, like just like staring at me.
It's me.
No. But yeah, yesterday, for instance, when we did the ritual, the Maori ritual, like I was like really like enchanted by it, very charmed. But then I couldn't understand the words because it was Maori, right? So I'm like, and then I had this guy translating, but his New Zealand accent was so strong that I couldn't understand his words either. So I'm like, Maori, New Zealand accent, and I'm completely clueless of what's going on. So that's the beginning of something. Like I felt that I was smiling to myself because I'm like, this is such a good scene. Somebody that is like, somebody's translating for them, but it's even harder to understand. So I feel that stories are truly everywhere. It's like, I feel that you just need to be very aware of what's making you laugh. Like, whatever makes you laugh, then that makes sense for you to write. Like, you cannot make up jokes that don't make you laugh. That would never work. You know, what you think is funny is not necessarily funny. It's what makes you laugh. It's what's funny.
What makes you laugh?
That. Somebody translated something. I don't know. Many things make me laugh. Like serious people make me laugh. Like people that are like take themselves very seriously about anything. I don't believe that anything is that serious ever. I find like award ceremonies to be really ridiculous, and they make me laugh. I red carpets and like fancy dresses. I don't know. everything that is like sort of anything that it has a fragility because of it's too serious.
Yeah.
I feel that it's funny and like whatever it's easy to break, you know, because whoever takes themselves seriously or too seriously, there's such a good target to fuck with them. I'm like, okay, because somebody that is like embarrassing themselves, they don't give a shit, like they have tools, you know, they're strong people. Like how could you break them? They're already broken, they don't care. But somebody that is like standing there and like being really tense and serious, oh my God, you want to stain their clothes so badly and like just prank call them and like, ruin their day.
Yeah. Fragility is a great word, and I get that in your films as well, that there is there's a fragile relationship between comedy and tragedy, and that the two almost run concurrently, that something, you know, sometimes you can go to the darkest place and it can kind of be funny, and I think that's one of your great skills as a filmmaker, is that you can find these, and I really felt this in The Maid, these incredibly moving moments and quite tragic moments, but they're funny.
Right.
And one can kind of laugh and cry at the same time. And is that something that you're attracted to?
I feel that I'm not a big fan of like genre, like when people are like, what is your movie? Is it a comedy? Is it a... And they're so obsessed, especially in America, I feel, with defining genre that they're like, this is actually a dramedy. You're like, yeah, it's both. It's not that. Like, what if it's a dramedy that has a little bit of thriller? It's a thrillery dramedy. Like, then there won't be a word. Like, you won't be able to pronounce the word if like you're adding like just life aspect to a story, you know? So, but I do feel that if you make your audience laugh about something and then something tragic happens, the tragedy is going to be so much stronger. And then again, after tragedy, if you make them laugh, the laughter is going to be so much stronger. But then if you promise comedy only and you're not making people laugh all throughout the movie, then every time that people are not laughing, then it's a failure. You know?
It's about expectations.
Yeah, because they're failing because they promise comedy and you're like, just watching with a blank stare, you know? So I feel that promising comedy or promising drama you're just basically sabotaging your own work. And like, creating expectations that you might not fulfill. It's hard.
I think that The Maid really plays with both, because you called it a tragedy yesterday, and yet I found myself laughing all the way through it. You know, I was terrified for the little kitten. And then when she tries to hide the kitten, it was funny. It was a funny scene.
Yeah, I mean, like, it is funny, but because, like, you see, the maid is taking herself so seriously.
Yes.
Like, she's like, I'm gonna kill this fucking cat so they know. And then her days become about getting rid of a kitten. It's like the most pathetic thing.
Yeah.
You know? So then she can get caught, and then she gets caught, like, hiding a kitten in a drawer. So, like, it becomes funny, but it's coming from a really sad, pathetic place. Yeah, but it is funny because she is serious about it. Because if she was laughing hiding the kitten, it would never be funny. You know, if she's like, I'm gonna put it here, it's so funny. And then she closes it. Nobody would find it serious. But if she's with a paranoid face and she's like, oh fuck, I'm gonna get caught, and like she puts it in a drawer, then it's funny because the stakes for her are huge, you know? And
it's an amazing performance.
Yeah, she's really the best actress I've worked with.
She's really...
Yeah, and she's one of those actresses that she could play like the most dramatic scene and then cut and then she's laughing. You know what I'm saying? Like, so she's truly an actress in the sense that she's acting up stuff. Like she's acting to be sad. She's not actually sad when she is acting to be sad or something,
we'll show a couple of clips from The Maid. So this first clip is Raquel, the maid. Every time another maid is brought in to help her out, she sabotages this maid and gets rid of her. And this one...
this one is like a maid, Sonia. It's the grandmother of the family's maid, who the grandmother thinks it's a good idea to bring to this house to teach Raquel a lesson, right? So it's an older, tougher maid that it's very confrontational. And then Raquel keeps on doing this thing that when maids go get the mail or like the grocery man brings groceries, she locks them out. Like she closes the door and locks them in the front yard.
And this scene is what happens after she's been locked out. And we'll line up the next one from the MAID, Blair, while we talk about this. I mean, again, this is the other thing. When you talk about embarrassment, is you seem to be really interested in what people do when they're on their own, in a
Yeah.
and when they don't think anyone's watching and they've got to deal with something. I mean, there's something again quite nail-bitey about watching what she does and unexpected.
I was just gonna say something. It has nothing to do with that, but like, I remember just for people that are directing actors, because I thought of like how did I get her to do that? Because I remember she was really not into climbing down that roof, and like, she's like, the fuck, why do I need to do, like, I'm 50 something. And I'm like, yeah. So the way that I deal with actors that are afraid to do things, or like they are second guessing your direction and they want to like have a talk with you, they're like, can we have a moment? I pretend that I'm like very aloof, and I'm like, yeah, what is it? And they're like, I don't know, I can go on the roof. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's really hard, I know, but yeah, you can do it great. And she's like, no, but I want to talk, yeah, that's great. And then like I pretend to be busy with something else, right? Like it's like you put an act, like you really put an act. Like you're like, yeah, you smile at them, like you confuse them because you're not like, no, like I really think it's huge for the movie that you go down the roof, like because I wrote it like that and it's the vulnerability. Like you don't even address it. You're like, yeah, I love that too. They're like, what? And then you're like, yeah. And then you just move on. And like that's really a good technique for actors sometimes. Like just confuse them. It's like
run away.
It's a good technique for everything. Like sometimes I get angry emails from people, and then I send them the most weird email, like, yeah, I've been trying to buy a labradoodle, but I don't know where to find them because like they just breed them in Long Island. Like, do you know where I could get one? And they're like, what the fuck? So you just like sort of, you take on a tangent, and then people are like, I don't understand it. They cannot hate you. They think you're you're truly stupid, which is a great thing.
And then the labradoodle ends up on your doorstep.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Let's watch the second clip from the MAID. So this is the moment when there finally a MAID shows up who cracks Raquel open really with compassion, doesn't she?
Right, yeah. She's like the one that managed to enter into Raquel's emotional shell and like brings her out. And this is the key moment where that happens. So Raquel, on top of like just locking them out, she would, every time that a maid takes, because they share a bathroom, so every time a maid takes a shower or a bath, she would go right after and like bleach the whole thing, like use bleach, but like grotesquely, like, so she's making a point that you're infected bitch, like I'll just bleach everything you touch, So that's what she does after Lucy takes a shower, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. What I love about that is that it's, it's Raquel's story, but it's the compassion is the fact that Lucy cries for her. It's not
right.
the other way around.
It's something that I did also in Crystal Fairy, that when the character of Gabby Hoffman, Crystal Fairy, which is like a hippie from San Francisco who goes by that name, and like she's obsessed with fairy stuff and esoteric stuff, and she claims she's very healthy, but when she's alone she drinks Coca-Cola, And she finally comes out at the very end of the movie. She confesses that she was raped when she was younger, and then you realize that she's been hiding behind this like fictional character who's Crystal Fairy, which is everything is positive, right? But like she's been hiding this dark episode in her life, this very like painful episode, and then as she's confessing, then the character of Michael cries for her. And I feel that crying for somebody else's pain is like, it's the most sort of like explicit form of compassion, but it's very graphic and it works really well. And that's what happens here. And then Raquel is so thrown, you know?
Yeah.
She's like, why is she crying? Like, it really cuts so deep into her that somebody's crying for her, that's what brings her out. Yeah.
I feel that we've got about 5 minutes, so I'll just, in a minute, we'll open up for any questions that you might have. I feel that all the way through your films there is you've got a very strong relationship with compassion and kindness, or the absence of, and then
Right.
Is that something that you're conscious of? Is that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's something that I'm always in the search for, or like trying, because like we live such a selfish lives, and I feel that whenever you put yourself in somebody else's shoes, or like whenever you try to feel for somebody else, life becomes better for yourself, which is like something that we forget, but it's really there, and for some reason it's so hard to do it, just to like be generous, you know, and not, I don't know. I use it as a reminder for myself, really. I would love to do the ultimate compassion film at some point, because I truly feel that it's something that it opens people's eyes in the best way, and like, I feel that doing it how I've done it in a way that you show characters that you make your audience judge, because the character of Raquel is really unbearable. Like, she's really mean to everybody, racist, she's racist, she's short with people, she's selfish and just plain mean and angry, you know, and like, you don't like her, like you truly don't like her. You hope that she gets fired or something, and then you see something like this, and then you turn, and then you feel you care for her, you know, and then you're like, okay, she's a victim of herself, like we all are, you know. When we're assholes, we're not being truly assholes. We're just being sad.
Yeah, we don't want to be assholes.
Yeah, we're just being sad people. Trying our best, you know, but like, it's just like being an asshole. It's such a sign of insecurity and like unsolved things. So everybody's a victim of themselves and their own sort of like traumas or insecurities. So I think that's very effective, to create characters that are highly unlikable and then forgive them yourself. And I don't like characters that are unlikable that end up unlikable. Like, I find that to be, I don't know, just like plain mean, and like it just kind of like empty to me, to like torture a character and show no love for the character. If I don't love my character, why would I even make it?
You talked a lot about love yesterday, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel that loving your characters is the least, is the most important thing, for sure. Like, if you don't care for them, they don't need to be nice. Like, loving somebody doesn't mean that you will marry them or hang out with them. Like, I would never hang out with Raquel, you know? Yeah, she seems weird, but. But yeah, I understand her. I can love her in a sort of in a compassionate way. Yeah.
Why do you love what you do? What is it about what you do that you
To
love?
be honest with you guys, like, I question this every day. Like, it's not something that I love, just per se. Like, sometimes I hate it, and sometimes I'm like, why even bother to make movies? You know? Because I don't know. There's like, I guess it's something that I cannot stop. It's like I cannot avoid it. It's hard to avoid it, I feel. If I wasn't making movies, I would probably, I don't know, kill myself or something. I'd be just, but you know, there's something about I question making movies or making art or writing poetry or anything. I question it because sometimes I feel that living the experiences, it seems not to be enough. Like, for instance, yesterday when the translation thing, right? I was like, this is so precious. Like, this is such a great moment, like a comedic, perfect moment. And then immediately I'm like, I should write this. Maybe I should make this into a series. It's called The New Zealand Guest. But like, why do I have to bring my experiences? Like, what is the necessity of sharing? Like, I've always questioned that. You know, I'm like, why do I want to share this? Like, why
do you have the answer? Why do you want to share
I
that?
really don't know. I think there's something to do with validation. There's something to do with like an honest desire to share what brings me joy too. So it's not I don't question it, like I don't judge that impulse, but also you got to be careful because there's so many of those moments. Life per se, it's that moment, you know. So in movies take so long to make, and it's such an investment that I personally have to be careful not to get seduced by all of those little moments and think that they're all worth a movie or a series. And really, like I write them down, of course. I definitely will write down the translation thing, and then I might use it at some point for something. But yeah, I feel that there's a certain anxiety to creativity that I want to be careful about. It hunts me, you know, it hunts me, but it's a good thing. Otherwise,
I was going to say, given everything else you've said, if that anxiety disappeared, all that questioning, then you'd probably be worried, right?
probably I'll be so relieved. I'll be so relieved. I'll be like, yeah, finally. No, but it's a good thing. It's both. It's a curse and it's a blessing. It is really both. And I feel, as I said yesterday, if you don't question your craft and why you do things, then whenever I feel too safe, I feel suspicious. Yeah. I suspect, yeah.
Do we have any questions? Sorry, I thought that would, no, that was lifting.
Yeah,
up.
this guy.
Was the cut on her arm real?
Was the cut on her arm real? So I'm just saying that for the cameras.
Oh, no.
Just that you don't use makeup for.
No, I didn't heard that one. No.
And, yeah.
In the conception scene, the camera movement looked quite choreographed so that Kristen Wiig wouldn't be exposed when she was inseminating herself. So how did you manage that along with the improvisation?
I mean, because, yeah, like she didn't want her genitals to be exposed, period. So the DP had to work that out. But she actually removed her underwear and did something, you know? I was not looking in a, but that's really simple to do. The guy just like got behind her head. We did, as I said, like improv, it's kind of a myth because like of course, that scene feels like it's a one long take and everything happened on that period of time, but we shot that scene probably like 7 times with different angles and stuff, you know? So you work it out, like you're like, okay, I'm gonna be standing here, and then, okay, let's do the beat where you guys are looking at the photo book, and then when she leaves, then we cut, and then we would retake from there, and then plan the shot, you know? So yeah, it's just a matter of planning the shot, yeah.
Oh, okay, one more. Yeah.
Can you talk about your relationship with your producers during the development stage? Because a lot of stuff I'm understanding would be in your mind as to how things are going to go. And a lot of trust is necessary that, you know, we'll get the right piece of shit on time.
Right.
To make this scene work. Can you talk about successes and difficulties with working with producers for your stuff?
Yeah, luckily I have producers that, I mean, I like hands-off producers, like creative, unless they've directed something or, I don't know, like I don't really do creative collaboration with producers. I'm always open, as I said, I'm always sharing my material, so if they, like for instance, I'm working with a producer now that gave me some notes in the screenplay and I really like them. And I address them, you know, but it's never a condition. I would never work with a producer that is like, you really need to, I never would do that. So I expect that they trust me and that we're working with me, you know, and and I make sure that they feel that any suggestion is welcome. And I'm very open to suggestions, but like most of my producers, whenever they visit set, if they ever do, which is really not that common, I don't usually, my producers are not on set. When they do, they're usually like laughing on the background and like enjoying themselves and like they would give me some notes and then I would take them or not, but it's been a very easy ride with producers actually. Yeah, I've always had final cut. I mean, my movies are so small, you know, that The one movie, Magic, it was a movie that I was risking Final Cut, but I finally got it. And that was a weirder movie because Sony was involved, and they gave like really strange notes, and then they decided to change the nature of the entire film, and I was not willing to, and then their final sort of revenge was not to release it theatrically. So my relationship with Sony ended up with an email with a labradoodle or something. Like, I actually sent them a big emoji, like a frowny emoji, like, and then it was like, this is more or less how I feel about our collaboration. It was like a huge sad emoji, and then I never got a reply. So that was an experience with producers that we were just not in the same page, and I think it was the wrong collaboration with producers. So I just make sure that when they read or hear the story I want to make and how I want to make it, like I just really make sure that they understand exactly the nature of what I'm going to do. So there's no misunderstandings after you've shot it, you know? Because it happens a lot that it's like, oh, I thought you were going to make a horror film. And you're like, no, I said psychological thriller. And then it's like, what? Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I think we're going to have to leave it there. Sebastian,
thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for coming. And you are a singular, original, and beautiful filmmaker.
Oh,
and I think
you.
I can speak from all of us to say that we've taken an enormous amount from your presence here.
Thank you so much.
You're
It's been
an
such a
absolute
pleasure.
inspiration. Thank you.